Evening all. It may be miserable and uncomfortable and just generally terrible in the FPL world, but we're here to celebrate. Suited up. We got three people, and I'll let you guess who's who on this. One who's a best man at a wedding, one who's going to make a very effective game-winning break, and another person who's going to deliver a paper on the stagnating economy of the Soviet Union in the late 70s. You can decide who. But how are you? Anyway, Danny, this evening, you look absolutely dapper, sir.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, not bad yourself. It's been a while since I've put this on, actually. Yeah, no, I'm good. Although I did suddenly think just before the pod, I was like, hang on a minute, what if those two have spoken to each other and actually this is all just a joke and I'm just going to turn up in a suit and be the only one? And then I thought, okay, well, that might happen. And then I thought, it's actually really hot here as well, so I've also just had to put shorts on.
It's really hot, isn't it?
I've got the old like shorts and socks and trainers on with a suit job. But yeah, I'm good.
Don't show them behind the curtain.
Hey?
Don't show them behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've also got a few beers here, so there might be a few toilet trips tonight, so I'll probably have to stand up and expose full at some point.
But you're right about one thing. It's starting to get hot. If for those of you outside the UK, it's actually hitting 30 here at the weekend. So it's starting to build up here. And after one beer, this suit jacket will become a little bit sort of tight and testy. By the way, I just reminded us earlier on when I bought this. Yeah, when my first paycheck from teaching. We're talking about 15, like 20 ages ago. And I went straight down. I was like, all right, I'm going to get myself a Hugo Boss suit. And they had a one in the sale that was a sort of a chocolate brown number. So I dug that out. And I've just moved house, so I didn't know where anything was. So this is the best I can do at short notice. But it still fits like a glove. I haven't changed weight for about 20 years. So lucky me, I suppose, would be the thing. Jossy, how are you this evening? We haven't actually said hello yet. But you look extraordinary as ever. I'm informed by our spies in Dubai that you're actually wearing flip-flops, but we don't need to tell anyone about that.
Yeah, well, I'm on the beach in the suit.
Oh yeah, true. Yes, there is.
No, really well. Thanks for having us on again, guys.
No, pleasure. We need to
on when you've hit the big 1,000.
Well, this is it. So, if any of you are wondering why are those guys in suits, what's wrong with them? Have they just got home from their high wage-paying sort of city jobs? No, I can assure you, definitely not the case. But yeah, we've been very lucky, and we're very, very grateful to new and old subscribers. We're not one of those companies that sort of benefits the newcomers, etc. You know, we're here for you old guard as well, so don't worry, nothing's going to change too quickly or anything like that. So yes, 1,000 subscribers, which is a long time coming, a lot of hard work. I think what is it? It's just under 2 seasons, isn't it, Danny? Because we kind of we started in a weird international break in the season before last, so it's not bad going really.
Yeah, no, I thought it was around Christmas time, something like that. Yeah, but so I feel like it's about a year and a half, but which is weird, absolutely flown by, isn't it? But we never intended to have any subscribers or followers, really. We were just sort of filming ourselves talking to each other. So it's nice. It's nice that some people apparently want to listen to us, which is great. We've got to say a big thank you to our good friends at Above Average, haven't we?
Yes.
For doing a fantastic...
I mean, it kind of is hilarious to Danny and I that that basically we had a chat last week. I said penis over and over and over again, and then somehow it gets managed by Above Average, who can say a different version, dick, much more effectively than I can't get away with that kind of thing. I feel sort of a bit embarrassed, you know. And then suddenly about 150 subscribers just jump in. So if you're here, embrace yourself for a slightly less professional podcast with sort of more disappointment and generally bad timekeeping. But don't judge us too harshly. Give us the summer so that we can enjoy the 1K to sort of line up and stay until August. That would be something for us, I think, to enjoy. So there you go.
Yeah.
I've got to say that before we kind of kick into to proper chat as well. Sorry, Danny, I'll let you jump back in a second. But yeah, I must gather from both of you your sense, your kind of mood going into this week, because it's such a weird week to do a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, as Jossy said, a little bit on the beach, innit? So, you know, it's fine though. I mean, I'm sure this is going to be a bit of a vibes pod. I think it has to be vibes for Game Week 38. Like, it's just the way it is. But I'm also. I mean, we'll talk about it at some point, and maybe also in kind of post-mortem pod that we do in a couple of weeks. But I'm already kind of really looking forward to next season, which is not usually the case after a season that I've not actually found enjoyable. certainly towards the end of the season for various reasons. But I feel like I've learnt loads, which is always good, and I'm already looking forward to to next season. But no, I wasn't. I was just to turn back a second. I was just going to say a special thanks to Adam as well, especially on Above Average. I love the way he always does things. He's a real doer, isn't he? You know, like the fact that he just like said, you know, he's like, let's do this properly, and we're gonna send off a mug and stuff. I was just thinking before, like if I had to even post one mug, it'd take me about 3 weeks. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't even, to even get the mug, never mind package it and stuff. So everybody needs an Adam in their life, a proper doer. So yeah, shout out to them.
Do you know, speaking of which, I don't think I've ever seen Dan in here before. This is very exciting. Hello, Crypto Blog Dan. He's with us, celebrating the 1K subs. Head over to Above Average for good advice on all things crypto. It's not a world I really know anything about. Jossy, I feel like you would be a guy who knows about that kind of thing.
I've dallied with crypto, done well, done not so well, got out and probably leave it alone now. But as you said, it's been a frustrating season, hasn't it? I actually started really, really poorly, and I was having an optimistic end to the season. I'd made real strides, and an optimism of a relatively respectable finish. And the last month has been a little bit of a nosedive, so it's been a bit frustrating, but still optimistic for the final game week.
That's good. Well, I'm going to pretend that I am, but the truth is, with West Ham impending relegation and my rank, even though I don't look at it, you know, none of us are stupid. We're here all the time. You can't really ignore the white noise. It is nosediving like a plane crash. It is absolutely terrible the last month or so. Really, really difficult, but it's fine. But I should also shout out the fact that we will be here for a post game week 38 post-mortem. We've got a special guest lined up for that, a man who knows how to do a post-mortem. All I'll do is say that. So very exciting thing to do after game week 38 as well. So going to do some shout outs because of course lots of fantastic people in the chat, not just Crypto Bogdan. Let's have a look around. FPL Psycho saying we're looking sharp. Thank you very much, Mr. Psycho. Rhino's in for your thoughts on Cunha later, Danny. That's quite an interesting one. Yeah, a nod of approval. We like that. Who else have we got here? Gareth, who's talking about things about North London forever. I have to say, last night, was it last night or was it the night before? I've lost my sense of time, but I think it hit sort of 9:45 or 9:30 or whenever it was, and there were some kids singing in a garden not far away, you know, Arsenal, and I was like, what's going on here? You know, I'm sort of a few minutes walk from the Brentford ground, etc. This is an absolute disgrace to Southwest London. So get back indoors, kids. So yeah, none of that. But although we do have some Arsenal viewers, so well done to you. I can't make that joke about Declan Rice only winning trophies before he got to Arsenal now. It's very unfortunate. And lots of other people as well. Helen, looking great. Thank you very much. And yes, you're right. I am 1974. When will those Tesco suits start sweating? Yeah. And apparently, our old friend Stu, the FPL cartel will reveal that if I was a member of the cartel, I wouldn't be picking bloody Cherky or Jokeres or any of the other people that have been laying us down constantly. Yeah. I'll tell you that. Good. We're not going to do a review of last week because it's too depressing. But let's have a quick look at our mini league situation. I've reminded myself and Danny that we have to post our, the lavender pillow spray, which, by the way, I am still using actually in real life, and I like it. So, but that will be going to the winner of our mini league in a minute. So I'll just show you that. I'll come back to this title in just a minute. But yeah, interesting situation at the top. Matthew Nuttall, he's the man who's in pole position to get a lovely whiff of lavender on his pillow with Defcon Dynamos. He's got a 14-point lead. That's an interesting one, isn't it? It's like, ooh, probably, but you never know. So if Nick S, if you are in and you want to sort of DM us with what your captaincy punt or something is, or you need some, a few sort of tips on how to fail to catch Matthew, then please do let us know. I'm kind of excited to see what you do. The other names at the top there, behind Nick S, Benji Yag, sticking in there at number 3, Mike Cox, who could well be a joke name, and number 5, Joe Kelleher and Mike Evans, Boomtown Rats. And manager of the week I've never heard of before, but I like this name, so I didn't scroll on any further. Apsy Vaser. Look at that. Where the hell are you from, Apsy? I like it. But a Cat's Foot Iron Claw on 81 points. Yeah, I like it. So, yeah.
He's got. I can tell he's got some interesting hobbies, so I like him or her.
Yeah. Definitely something's going on there. And Dan, by the way, Dan, who has been great at shouting out the pod this week since he's just subscribed. Evening lads, we'll have to watch out. He's nipping to the chippy. Yeah. Well, what would you have, Jossy, if you were ordering from the chip shop right now?
Sausage, chips, curry sauce.
Classy. Danny?
Yeah, sausage, chips, mushy peas, and piece of cod.
Yeah, I'm big with you on the mushy peas. You know, especially if they're quite peppery. I like a peppery mushy pea. But I'm going to be quite boring here, and I'm sticking to the cod and chips. Although, if I ever see a hake, and by the way, I'm in London, so it is going to happen, then I don't mind that either. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm that guy.
Isn't it cod that they've not got any cod anymore, have they? Or is that just up north?
Yeah, we don't send it further than Watford. Yeah.
I know. Well, honestly though, the chippies up here at the moment, I don't think they've got any cod because they've been fished. They've been fished out, haven't they? Which is a bit anyway.
Yeah. You have to find all those sort of coley and all those things that aren't really a fish, but you know, I'll probably get in trouble with some really fishy knowledge person in the chat, so I'm going to stop.
Haddock's good. Haddock's good.
Haddock, yep. Cool. And now I'm going to caveat this. We're going to get straight into questions this week, and I suspect it'll be a bit briefer than normal because we don't know what we're talking about, and it is all vibes, as Danny says this week. Well, so it's a funny one, isn't it? But some great questions have been sent in, so it'd be remiss of me not to kick into gear and that sort of thing. Oh, actually, do you know what? 12 minutes in, and see, I know we've got loads of new subscribers knocking about the joint, sitting around, you know, in with glasses of white wine spritzer and enjoying the olives. But if you do want to add your like and subscribe at this early point, if it's not for Danny and I looking smart and smooth, then our good friend Jossy, who's come here to look even smarter and smoother. So there we go. By the way, before we get into questions, Pep has said we do still have cod in Berkshire.
In Toby Carvery.
And the Toby Carvery, yeah. I've never been there myself, but I hear that the working classes enjoy it tremendously. That's so true. I keep people don't believe, by the way, that I'm actually from a very, very like humble working class background. I just ham it up quite a lot. So you know, I can drop my you know, it doesn't matter. We're going to start with Big Mikey's question here at the top, and really there's a bit of a theme, as you can imagine. Lots of people are looking for their edge, their way of winning a mini league. Perhaps they're 10-15 points behind and they just want an edge. I always used to take this kind of view, I don't know whether you guys are like this, but that almost towards the end of the season I used to take this attitude of being so boring but just by staying sensible that everyone else around me would fail. But I don't think that's going to happen this season, sadly. So Mikey's definitely looking up for a bit of a punt, but he wants to start with trying to work out who to target, really. And again, a lot going into this week is going to depend on the year amount of transfers. But he's thinking, well, do we target teams with something to play for, such as I suppose, obviously West Ham, Tottenham would be two obvious ones. A couple of teams who are still in the European place shout, including Liverpool, Jossy's team. So, for example, do we target Liverpool for their UCL place on the line? Someone like a Salah obviously is coming up in FPL. Salah's question, last hurrah on Salah. Or could we even be going to a sort of beach game where anything could happen? So Burnley attackers versus Wolves, people thinking Jadon Anthony, people thinking, what's his name? Is it Zion Fleming? Yeah, so those are two examples. Jossy, why don't you give us your own view on this? I think if we can throw Salah into the mix here and Liverpool more generally, but let's start with Liverpool. I mean, do you think, if you were picking, is it a case-by-case basis? Are you kind of really curious to try and back teams whereby they've got a positional aspect on the line, or are you looking beyond that to a more exciting sort of beach pump?
I think there's a bit of both, because there's certainly value in targeting those teams. Obviously, you've got something to still fight for. But I think final day of the season, if you've got good players with open fixtures or accommodating defences, I think you get goals on final day of the season anyway. There's been a lot of talk about, I've always been of the mindset that if you've got a couple of teams who are supposedly on the beach, probably can just lead to a more open game, because there's nothing at stake, there's nothing really to shut up shop for, and they just go out and play and maybe get a few goals. But there's also been quite a lot of talk, I think, in this week about, I've read an article that it seems that players now, with their goal bonuses, win bonuses, even those players who are supposedly nothing to play for, they're playing for their own financial incentive. So I think I understand that on the beach is becoming a bit of a fallacy. I'll touch on Liverpool specifically. It's a funny one. We're probably home and hosed in terms of the Champions League place. We want to get that win just in case Bournemouth pull off a big win. But picking our players, obviously, the big news this week was Salah's statement, very bold statement, speaking about the state of the club, the style of the football, a real jibe at Slot. And I know it's his big hurrah and it's his big send-off. There's a little, but I personally wouldn't start him if I was Slot. You have to. It's a tricky one, because I think they want to give him the send-off, but he's been and I don't disagree with him, but he's been really disrespectful to Slot. He's really called him out, and as a manager, probably shouldn't start him. So it's a real risk that going with Salah, but he's probably one of the most exciting upside plays if you have got a bunch of transfers in your pocket. He's not an easy player to get to if you've got one transfer or two transfers. Two transfers, you're probably looking at selling Haaland, and I don't think most want to do that. So, but I think there's interesting options at Liverpool anyway. Szoboszlai has been really consistent. I've not been as excited about Szoboszlai as an FPL asset, but he's proved me wrong multiple times. Well, I think he's a great pick. And I do think Rio Ingamoa could be a final day punt if you're looking for something a little bit risky. I've got a good feeling he probably should get a start, maybe. Yeah. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, there's a lot there, really, isn't there? I don't know where to start. I think with Salah, let's probably just go there first, and we can kind of move into the games and people to play for as well, given that you talked about Liverpool. I don't think he's an option, really. I don't think he's an option at all. I just think it's completely up in the air whether he starts or not, and I think he shouldn't start. Obviously, it just entirely depends on what's going on with Slot, really, and who's in control and who's in power. Because, he's just been like blatantly really disrespectful. So the simple answer is, if I'm a leader, if I'm the manager of that club, I'm in charge, and I'm gonna stay there, then it's not even close to being an option that you play after coming out. So he's just come out on social media and basically said the manager's not very good. Liverpool don't play the right football. We need to start playing the way we used to play under the previous manager, and not under this one. So that's about as bad as it gets. So if I was a manager there and I was going to stay, and you're kind of a leader and you're in charge, I'd be going out of my way to say, Mo, come over here a second, mate. Just so you know, I've made a really nice little warm, comfortable seat for you on the bench so that you can really soak up the atmosphere and you can really see what the crowd is like on your final day, because there's absolutely no chance you're getting on the pitch, pal. No. And it would be as simple as that. And there's absolutely no chance. Why would there be any favours getting dished out? But, whether he does that is a different question altogether, because I don't know if he has the power. I don't know we don't know if they've made up behind the scenes, which is extremely unlikely. But yeah, I mean, look, there's so much up in the air, especially now in this last week, that in terms of a lot of other players we're going to talk about, and a lot of minutes and security and rotation with Arsenal and City, that you can't bring up. It's silly to bring in another rotation risk. And as ever, minutes are king. There are lots of upside picks to choose from that are low owned that you can go for that will play. So I don't want to dismiss this like too early and just sort of end it. But for me, it's not even close to being an option to get Salah.
For me, no.
And again, we I know I went for, I mean, everything, a lot of things I'll say tonight and in the next couple of weeks will be sort of, anyone who knows will also sort of say, yeah, but you captain Gyökeres, and that's fine. I can very much make the distinction between what I believe in as the way I normally play and how I play generally in minutes and stuff like that. And I mean, for me, it's a little bit different. Like, I don't really care if I'm not in the top 10K, which the chances of that ended a few weeks ago. I don't really care. I'm happy to go for a little bit of a risk. I'm happy to go for some big swings. And he was like easily the most low owned, and that's a different story. And I did think he would start, even though I knew it was still a risk. Again, generally you just don't make that sort of pick. Whereas Salah is like I say, I think he's at best 50-50. So I think it's going to be a bit of a focus of tonight. Generally, is kind of getting the guys. And there's another question related on this screen, I think, from memory, that in terms of priorities to sell. I think there's so much up in the air and so much risk with so many players, that the most important thing now is the guys who are basically guaranteed to play. And then it's organising around those guarantees to play, who's maybe got the motivation or who you believe in. But yeah, I mean, just to even touch on the first question, Rich, and come back to you. Obviously, motivation is important. And I think that the beach thing will always be true, to be honest. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a thing that the game's got more professional. Obviously, the amount of how fit players are in general, and people drink less in the society, and never mind footballers. There's everything's a bit more sensible now. Everything's a bit more professional, and there is monetary, financial kind of bonuses and motives for finishing a bit higher. But nothing that doesn't really change. There's a difference between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and players ultimately still, the passion and emotion and real energy comes from something really meaningful, and it isn't just from a few quid from finishing 11th or 10th. You know what I mean? It's just that's never going to make a huge difference. So yeah, there's a bit that I know a few people have said the same thing this week about, like, I do always like Game Week 38, and I always like those games actually where neither of them have got anything to play for. And to be honest, you both probably have to help me out a little bit tonight about exactly who's got what to play for, because I'm not. I can't say like I'm entirely clued up on like the exact European positions and teams like, I don't know, Villa and Chelsea and stuff like that. And so we will talk about that. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I like the games where there's both it's a bit on the beach, where there looks like there's going to be goals maybe. And I do like the teams that really have got something to play for. So I am definitely looking at, quite close to the top of the list for me this week is Spurs and West Ham. Just has to be, because lives are on the line in those games. But then outside that, there are maybe a few games that we could talk about a bit more that might be interesting in terms of finding that random, because there are those games in Game Week 38 that you get those random just 1-5s and 6-2s, aren't you, and 4-3s. And it's always quite nice to try and find where those games are. And I'm just looking now, and maybe it's like Fulham, Newcastle, Fulham without Anderson. Maybe it is Burnley, Wolves, which is interesting. Maybe it's Brighton, Man United to an extent, but I know Brighton do have, quite a lot to play for. And maybe it's Sunderland, Chelsea. Just at first glance, they're the sort of fixtures I'm looking at that might actually have quite a few goals. I'm interested in, actually, for various reasons. And then just finally, in line with that is who within those teams is definitely going to play. So that's what really interests me at the moment. So we'll talk about some of those players. I'm thinking about people like Cole Palmer and someone, Richie just mentioned Cunha. These sort of players who are, definitely going to play. So, but yeah, what do you reckon, Rich?
Yeah, I think one thing that's important here is not a slight on Mikey at all, because he's trying to make it sort of simple and identifiable for us with that question. But actually, you can't just saying teams and players with motivation and those on the beach, it's more complicated than that by quite a long way. And there will be some teams who fit into quite an interesting kind of grey area. And to give you an example, is that when I was growing up, West Ham I'm pretty sure it was under Harry Redknapp, had this kind of last week or two of a season where they just secured survival for the next season, right? And they had one game left, and it was Manchester United at home, and they were one of two teams going for the title. And it was like a perfect example of a game where West Ham had nothing to play for, but just through the manager culture, through the sense of relief and joy and the ability to just play football with some freedom and with some bite again, they were terrific in that last game. They got a draw, and I think that might have been the game that denied Manchester United the title. But I don't know. There's a lot of years that are fudged into a small space of time. And I'd throw lots of games this weekend into that kind of lot. If you take something like, Crystal Palace Arsenal was an interesting one from that point of view. And you ask some people and they'll be like, well, Crystal Palace have got nothing on the line whatsoever. Why would they have any impetus going into it? And you ask another person and they'll say, well, actually, Glasner has said he's very likely to play a full strength team and they'll be really trying to win that game and so on and so forth. So you do have to ask yourself what you believe. It's not going to be quite as simple as there be beach, there be motivation. I think it is going to be a little bit more nuanced than that. But I agree with you, Danny. I mean, actually, games like Sunderland, Chelsea, which probably would not have been interesting had Sunderland not won last week, suddenly they can still get a European place. And they're at home. They're at a team who concede goals. You know, there's nothing to say that Sunderland can't win that game, potentially, and that could be quite interesting. I wouldn't back any of their players. I mean, Cole Palmer is the only one I would consider from that fixture from a buying kind of point of view, if you heard Saka was benched or something like that. So it is that. Just going back a little bit, I mean, Danny, you're the only person who can actually buy Salah. So it's an interesting one, because I'm assuming, Jossy, I mean, you would have to take a hit. I gespunked a lot of transfers in the last couple of weeks up the wall, and I can't be getting there anyway. But I'm in agreement with you. Every week, by the way, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, Jossy will affirm to this, but every week I slip into Jossy's DMs. Szoboszlai is an option this week, isn't it? You know, that type of thing. I'm like, I want you to just tip me over the edge and be like, you watch him all the time more carefully than I do, and every week I should just buy the bloody guy. And so next season, it'll be relatively similar price and locate. My God, I should he's a plug in and play, isn't he? You know, 90 minutes and all the rest of it. So, and interestingly, by the way, on that crypto book, Dan is thinking of a punt on Szoboszlai captain, so that could be quite an interesting one. I don't hate that. He's definitely on the list, and I think actually what I would encourage people to do with this first question, I don't know how you feel about this, Jossy and Danny, but because we won't make that decision until probably quarter to, is it 2:30? It's 2:30, isn't it, the deadline?
Yeah,
it's a weird time.
Yeah, it will be, yeah.
So you'll be making your transfer about 2:10 on Sunday, probably when you're at the dinner table or something like that, or somewhere really awkward, and you'll have to make a snap decision. I would encourage you I'm not saying do a sort of press style flow chart or anything like that, but it's probably worth having a list of players in each position that are more and less likely to in your head to be players that are risk of rotation and ones that you want to bring in, so that you can make that decision pretty quickly, because it is going to be difficult. But yeah, I think we're broadly Salah skeptical. The last point, though, I think we should just draw a bit more attention to that. The beach teams, as in Burnley. I've never heard anyone talk so much about Burnley players this week. There's a few people in the chat who are looking at it. So I don't know. Maybe if we just pick out any particular kind of players or teams that we are just casting an eye on, that we want to raise. Jossy, is there anyone that you look at these fixtures, this fixture that remains, and actually you're thinking, well, if this happens, that would be a player I'm interested in, and so on? Have you got a kind of short list in your head of fixtures?
I've got someone who's quite near the top of my list at the moment. I think obviously there's a lot of motivation for Spurs. Everton have also been low-key shipping quite a few goals lately. So I think that could be relatively open. I had a little look earlier. Richarlison's not got a bad record against his old club. So Richarlison is someone who tempts me. He's got a habit of, I think he's rescued Everton from relegation on final day a couple of times. He'll probably get booked taking his shirt off, celebrating it. But Richarlison's one who tempts me. Let's see, what else do we have? It's tricky. I mean, I think the motivation.
Please carry on, Jossy, because I was pouring a beer.
No, that's fine. That's fine. The motivation, I think it's there. You touched on the Chelsea-Sunderland game. Chelsea can still get into Europa as well, I think, if Brighton fail to win. So they've got some motivation. I don't think they particularly want to get in the Conference League again. But they could be up for it. I happen to have a couple of Chelsea players. I don't think I'd be buying, if I'm honest. But I'm quite comfortable to own them. The interesting one on Arsenal, because again, we're talking about rotation. I was asking a friend who's an Arsenal fan earlier, look, do you think you're going to be putting out a B team? His view, and I hadn't thought about this, is that he'll probably want the first team to get a guard of honour. So there's probably a good chance that a lot of the big assets will play. Now, they might all get 60-minute subs. I think that's probably the bigger risk. He starts to give players a run out. But there's potentially a good chance that the main players do start, so they get a guard of honour. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I mean, there's lots of things about that. I mean, I feel like we need to go through the games one at a time, almost, to be honest, Rich. Like, I keep bouncing from game to game, thinking about how different every game is, and how different, and that's where I'm sort of like,
fine, we can do that.
That's why I'm sort of trying to extract what to think about each fixture. And we're talking about Arsenal at the moment, so I think that's a really interesting game for several reasons. Obviously, now it's for several reasons. Obviously, it's worrying in terms of rotation. That's an interesting point about the guard of honour. I think that's probably going to have something to do with it. It's going to have something to do with it. What's going to take priority there is who's actually fit to play, who's not been getting too smashed, who's not been sort of taking the piss a bit too much. Because I don't know if you saw all those videos of them out till 5 a.m, which is fine. Go on, Rich.
No. What I was going to say, I mean, this occurred to me earlier. Now, Danny's got a very good boy theory when it comes to Premier League players. Obviously, as a broadly the good boys who don't drink.
Yeah.
So if this does come into play.
Well, I know. Well, Saka was there. I mean, Rice was there. I mean, they're all probably pretty good boys. I mean, to be fair, when I was out at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was not as sober as those guys looked in those videos. Couldn't even walk straight. But yeah, I mean, so that's going to play a part. Is just kind of what state people are in, how fit people are. I mean, and I think generally they're going to be organised pretty quickly, because we know Arteta is just going to have said to them, right, have a night out, boys, go and do what you want, your champions. But we've got to get back to work. We've got to prep. We've got to be there, and they will all be, because everyone's just a bit more sensible these days. I mean, one of the sort of fascinating things about that game is what Arsenal looked like at all, because literally every single game this season, Arsenal have been, as I've said many, many times, just 100% intensity. The most intense team we've seen for years and years that I can even remember. That's what they are. So everything about what they are is like absolute Arteta intensity, chasing, pressing, running down, total passion, intensity, 100% all over the pitch. And then that manifests in like a 1-0, a clean sheet, and a set-piece goal. And it's just so intense. So this is the very first game this entire season where theoretically there should be no intensity at all. What do Arsenal even look like with no intensity? I have no idea. They could just lose comfortably. I don't know, because you take all that away, and then what do they get? They could, like you sort of alluded to, Rich, have a bit of freedom, and we could just see a lot more of kind of attacking flow. Who plays? It could be really interesting. Obviously, a lot of us have kind of tripled up on them, so now we have to be a bit more objective about positionals and play and stuff like that. So I'm looking at someone like Gyökeres, and he's just, rightly or wrongly, because he could just start and be great, because they could just free scoring, score 3 goals, but he's just a complete no go now, really, in my head, pretty much. Because obviously it could easily just be Havertz who starts, and I'm just not having it. We're not having any of these. Whereas Saka obviously has kind of less competition, and still building up minutes, and is still getting to full fitness, having not been there all season, and has reason to start, has reason to want for Arteta very much to want him to start and play. So kind of looking at objectively the minutes is like Gyökeres is a no-go, but can we play someone like Saka? What does that look like? I think probably yeah, because I think he will want to play them. You know, the thing with Palace is Palace will take the game quite seriously. They will want a first 11. They will want to, you know, do something, but they won't be jumping in for tackles. They won't take any risks. They will come off after 50 or 60 minutes. And so they will be vulnerable in defence. You know, so that game basically just looks like goals, or certainly a lot more goals than it did do. It could just be a 0-0 ball fest, or it could just be, you know, it's going to be interesting because it's a completely different Arsenal here that we haven't even seen at all at any point in the season. Do they even know what to do when they're not really intense and they're not just trying to grind out a 1-0? I don't know.
Well, I'm just going to pick up on that Arsenal game as a really good example of something I said to someone earlier on today, which is that, okay, so I think a lot of people are drawing their attention to someone like a Saka or a Gyökeres who they feel will get limited minutes. You know, it's going to be a 20 or a 65 or something of that order. That's what the kind of guiding principle is. They'll probably go off a bit early, or they'll come off the bench or something like that. And I'm kind of interested, the makeup of a lot of people's squads here, I'm kind of interested in someone like a Gabriel, where, okay, he could well just play a ball fest and it's 90 and it's great and everything like that. But it's worth just reminding ourselves that everyone owns him, and he could just not be in the squad at all. And so I'm quite interested in this kind of pick. I don't think that will happen, but you know, someone like a Saka, or you know, these other players around this picture here, different game, but someone like a Cherky, who Jossy and I unbelievably still own in this scenario here, you kind of know he's going to play, and his ratio of points per minute is quite high, etc. I know that I'm sort of clutching at straws here, but there is an argument that if you know, stay, this is why you want to hear leaks, etc., that someone like a Gabriel might end up being a sell. Like, probably not, but it's plausible that he's the position that you might end up sort of picking at. I don't know whether either of you have a view on this and whether I'm barking up the wrong tree, but it's quite an interesting position. Because everyone owns him. So if you're going to take on a position and you hear that there's a really rotated lineup, that's not a terrible idea, I would say.
Yeah, it's just, I think the only problem with that is, like I say, when we talk about all these teams at the moment, there's so many teams, there are so many players at risk of a one-pointer. There are so many players at risk of a cameo that I think we're going to find it quite difficult, most people, to actually organise an 11 where you're very confident that none of them are going to get a cameo. Whereas obviously the thing with Gabriel is
true, yeah.
Even if that's true, I'd be very surprised if he came off the bench. So you're quite comfortable with anyone in your team who's, if you think they're just a non or a 90, that's kind of actually pretty good. Because what we don't want is to fall on all these players who you just mentioned. Cherky, if it's Cherky, Semenyo, O'Reilly, Gyökeres, Saka, João Pedro if he's injured. Just
you just go on my team on.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I'm thinking about trying to pick my own team, yeah. And you know, so it's going to be a struggle to organise these players. You know, and people have got injured players. I'm just looking at my own team, like Struijk or someone who's not necessarily even going to play. So it's going to be really quite difficult to organise. Yeah, the players who you think are really definitely going to start. But it's true, Rich. You know, in terms of some people have got 3, 4 transfers or whatever, and obviously we will get leaks, I suppose, won't we? We'll get lots of leaks. So you've got to be ready for anything like that. Yeah, is I guess what you're saying, which is absolutely true. I mean, Gabriel.
Well, it is, and also I think. I mean, it's just the general vibe I get is that people are immediately thinking, oh, like, what would I do with a Saka or a Gyökeres or a Cherky or someone like this if they go missing, etc. But I just think it's worth keeping in mind to, if situation where, as you say, if you have a couple of injuries in your squad or something like that, where, you know, you might not mind half an hour from Cherky in an open game where Villa are probably likely to give absolutely no shits whatsoever. It might end up being a better pick than a Gabriel. Like, I mean, I struggle to believe it because, of course, he's a player I think I've owned for 6 or 7 games this season, and I've got 1 start out of him. So I think absolutely, I hate him. I don't think I ever want to see the guy again. I can't say what I want to say, but yeah, that's a pretty tricky one. But actually, what's quite interesting is we may as well jump across to the side there. I mean, people are asking this week, I'll just go back to it, but we know really that it's a key question this week. People are asking, what essentially whether you prioritize selling Man City or Arsenal, or what happens if you don't hear a leak. Can you still sell? I think Grimes asks that. It's behind something that I'm looking at here, but can we jump ship on Arsenal and Man City? What's your take on the Man City situation? Because I find that to be a little bit different in the sense that you could argue, okay, Pep's last game, he's going to want a certain type of display. Is he going to, in a sense, favour a kind of old guard of players, or is he simply just going to want an entertaining game, or whatever it might be? So there's been no formal announcement of that yet, is there? I might have missed it today in terms of actually Pep talking about it or anything like that. No. So
I don't think so. I mean, the big accounts like Ornstein, etc., have spoken openly about it. So it's public knowledge in the big accounts, but I don't think it has been.
It's funny, actually. It's funny. I was at the pub on Friday. Sometimes I go, and my dad goes there with all his old school friends, and they go there every Friday at like 4:00. So sometimes I go along if I'm nearby for a few pints. And one of my dad's friends, who you'd never imagine has any information, and so I didn't pay a huge amount of attention. But he said he knew someone on the inside at City, or he'd had a friend who told him that Pep was leaving. And he was I think he was referring to if you could get bets on that. I don't think you'd even be able to bet on that. And I was like, wasn't that bothered anyway. But he was saying that, this guy who worked at City had said that Pep was kind of he was getting all these photos taken, for example, of him standing in the middle of the pitch at night time with all the lights on, with all the trophies that he'd won around him and stuff. And all these kind of really sort of momentous things and pictures and stuff. And he said, and he not only said that, but he said they're also apparently getting Maresca. So I was like, oh, right, that's interesting. I never mentioned it to anyone because I thought, who cares anyway? If it happens, it happens. But it's interesting that both of those things are going to happen. So he was right. So if I see him on Friday, I'm going to say, whatever info you had, you were right. Okay, that's good. So I do think he is. I do think he. I think it certainly sounds like it was certainly the plan to leave. Obviously, things can change. I'm a little bit surprised, actually, just to sort of generally about Pep, because obviously he's been there for a long time, but he's such a young, sort of youthful guy. You just know he loves it here, and you just know that it's, in terms of it must be a great job to have. It's the perfect job, isn't it? And it's owned by trillionaires. He must get treated like a king, flown all around the world with just an incredible lifestyle, and he's in charge, proper like Ferguson style. Everything he says goes. Apparently, everyone who works there loves him. Apparently, which doesn't surprise me. He's an intelligent guy. He's a great guy. Apparently, all the staff absolutely worship him, and he was all his stories coming out about how he insisted they all get full pay during COVID and paid for loads of it himself. And, he makes loads of effort with all the staff and the tea ladies and everyone on their birthdays. You just think, I'm a bit surprised. I feel like if he does leave the job, which he probably will, he'll probably miss it quite quickly. I would have thought, maybe he'll get another job somewhere else. But anyway, this is kind of a separate point. So he probably will leave, but then obviously again, the decision to leave, he didn't actually know whether they would be champions or not, for example. And now they're not. They've just won the FA Cup. They've gone out a little bit on a whimper. It's not great. Maybe also he just foresees that the kind of players they've got are not. Maybe he doesn't want to go through an entire new rebuild and stuff. But anyway, in terms of rotation, just sorry quickly because I think I'm going to go to Jossy. But I think it is obviously a very difficult one because, broadly, I think he'll kind of play what he thinks is his best team, like he always would and always does. I do think, you might get a John Stones cameo off the bench. For example, in his last game, you definitely, Bernardo Silva always starts anyway. He's definitely going to start. Maybe kind of Foden plays, but he would possibly would have played anyway. Just to think specifically about people like Cherki and Semenyo, who a lot of people own. Cherki was already a big problem, to be honest, and apologies to anyone who did start him, but to me, that was a little bit insane because he lost his place, really. What the evidence we'd had, talking about minutes risks, minutes are king. It was different to Semenyo this week. Semenyo is kind of a player who is kind of, Pep clearly likes him a lot. He clearly offers a lot. He clearly works very hard. He's very good for minutes. And there's not many people who can do what he does on the right wing. Whereas Cherki, he'd already come out and said, he'd already dropped him. He'd already come out and said, when Pep, like I said last week, when Pep brings someone off at 55 minutes, then comes out after the game and says it wasn't working with Cherki on the pitch, Haaland wasn't getting the ball, it changed with Foden and Marmoush, then the next game he does the same thing, and then the cup final he benched him again, so it's like the guy's, of course he's always got a chance of starting, but he's basically more likely to not start than start, so he's a goner. The only thing with Semenyo that I will say is it's a little bit worrying. It's hard to judge entirely last night. I was surprised by all the players last night. I think Pep might be feel a little bit let down because there was a lot of effort in kind of like the last 10, 20 minutes. But before that, it felt a little bit, I mean, especially Semenyo, who came off after 55 minutes. Although, by the way, he scored and was like 2 inches offside. I don't know if you saw that. It was like, Jesus Christ, typical. But other than that, I mean, he just gave the ball away non-stop. And he looked, although he's obviously tired. So this is the thing, how much do you blame these players? Because it's 2 days after the FA Cup. But I was like, come on, man. I mean, when you're fighting for the Premier League, you can find that real extra effort. You can really, the whole team should have been 10% higher than they were, I thought. And I think Pep will be a bit disappointed by that. And obviously, you don't know how much that carries over to the next game, where if Semenyo, if he feels like a little bit let down, Semenyo could be a problem. But yeah, broadly, I think, and the only other one is obviously O'Reilly, because I mean, the other thing to think about, just lastly, is obviously whatever, the World Cup. And if teams have got absolutely nothing to play for, who wants to make sure they're fit for the World Cup? Who's going? Who do the international managers maybe not want to play? I don't know. I doubt that'll be too important. But yeah, so for me, City, I need to think about Semenyo a lot, because I think he's probably just generally still is the main man. He's the only guy they've really got on the right, and I think he just needed rest. I think Cherki's obviously just a kind of a bit like Gyökeres, is just an absolute no-go for me. Rich or Jossy, I don't know. You both own Cherki, don't you?
When you say no-go,
it's a disaster.
It is an absolute disaster. Honestly, like I am, and I think you're in the same boat, Rich. I missed all of Cherki's points, and on the back of that double game week where he was again, Semenyo was missing out on minutes, jumped ship, and now Semenyo's delivering the points, or at least he's delivering the minutes. When you said you think they're a no-go, does that mean Gyökeres and Cherki, you see them as hard sells, or you wouldn't be going there? Or you wouldn't want to start them?
Both.
Yeah.
I wouldn't start them. I'd sell them if I could. I mean, it's not like, it depends how much money you get. You can bench someone like Cherki, and fine, fine. You can play him. You can look at the predicted teams. You might think he's going to play. I think anyone's guessing, really, because I think Foden is on an upward trajectory, and Foden's been, basically Guardiola's son all this time. There might be a bit of narrative there. He really is one of his favourites. He's on an upward trajectory. He's looking fitter. He's looking sharper. So he's, at least 50-60% chance of starting. So, and that's pretty much the same position as Cherki. Marmoush has been favoured recently more, and then obviously, Doku's going to start, Bernardo Silva's going to start, etc., etc. So, for me, again, minutes are king. It's find the guys who are definitely going to start, and actually, a broader point. One of the saddest things about Guardiola leaving is obviously the interesting angle that he gives FPL, because every single season he creates these players there. No one will go for them because we don't know if they're going to start. We don't know how they're going to play. A bit like Foden earlier in the season. That was nice for me to get on that. That was when things were going better, and to get on that when no one else was on him. And he creates these, for want of a better word, traps, if you like, because minutes are king in FPL. And so it's very rare to get a Pep Guardiola player where the minutes are there. So it's incredibly hard to read. It gives you a game within a game. Obviously, our good friend Luke is fantastic, and he's just dedicated his whole kind of thought process for the last couple of years to figuring out Pep and trying to guess his team sheets. And I do think it's a bit of a shame, because there's always going to be Cherkis. Look at this. How many times? I know I don't want to dig it out. I'm not trying to have a go at everyone. This is purely a learning process, and it's me it's really important, I think. But how long have we been here? How many years with Pep? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And people started Ryan Cherki after 3 benchings. Like, this is what, and so it'll never go away. So the longer, that's why I wish Pep would stay, because people will always they'll always feel the pull of a Man City midfielder. Yeah. In your mind, you think, oh, what if he plays, and you see him scoring goals and getting assists, and you think, oh God, and it's all those cognitive biases that kick in as a result of Pep Guardiola. Yeah. You think lots of it's all these points that I've not got. All the ones he's cost me so much, and now if I bench him this one game, it'll be the one game that he starts, and he'll get 15 points, and everyone else will get 15 points, and I won't. So I'm going to play him, even though it's illogical, and it's like it's a game within a game, and it's such a shame that that's going to go.
I mean, look, Reinders looked essential at the start of the season. I thought a lot of us thought he was a game-breaking price.
Yeah,
Completely
and
unwilling.
he obviously was great. I mean, you remember he got a goal and assist on his first game, and
Yeah.
again, that's true. It's true. I mean, no one really should have gone there, and I remember it being kind of doubly fun because he wasn't kind of. I don't think he was very big on the models because again, the minutes, and it's. I mean, this is for a bit post mortem, isn't it? But again, Reinders was kind of still a kind of a product of an old game of football. We all got in Reinders in before this season, where before we found out that this is the season of defenders and Elliot Andersons and Defcons and so that's probably a separate thing. But no, you're right. It's the same thing. But yeah, I don't know what you think, Rich, but I'm gonna miss that.
Well, no. What's interesting is that you said that it's a game within a game, and actually, this week specifically for anyone interested, so that we can take it away from post-mortem territory, it's almost like a game within a week. Because Gyökeres and Cherki are two great examples of doublethink this week, because you've got a lot of people out there who are like, yeah, so they've been playing their first team, they've been benched. So this week when they've been rotated, surely they'll play now. So it is quite an interesting one. So it's enough, isn't it, Jossy? I'm sure you're in a situation similar to me where it's enough to keep a little bit of an eye until late on to see. Well, you never know, right? I won't be selling them kind of early, put it that way, but they are probably two of.
Well, I think
most likely
you're in the same boat as me, and we'll talk about teams in a little bit. But I've got one transfer, so I might just have to suck it up and keep one or two of these, and hope that they do start. But yeah.
I do think people need to consider this situation a little bit more carefully in that regard, because there are some players, as you say, I hate playing this game because it's totally not my kind of style, definitely not Danny's style, you're going to have these players where it might be a situation where you think, well, I'm definitely not going to get 11 starters here. And you might have to make a bit of a call of a player where you think, I don't mind keeping them in my squad because at least there's a relatively high chance that they're going to be potentially useful off the bench or something like that. And I hate that position, but it may well come down to that for some position. And actually, I just want to pick up on this now because it was a question later on, and I find it to be a really interesting one, is if you've got a player like a Saka or a Cherki for a lesser extent, Gyökeres even, who has a high probability of a bench. Maybe you get wind of a little bit of a leak, not a really firm one, but something like that. Whether you go ahead and play a Van Heck against Manchester United at home, where you think, okay, 2 points definitely, 4 points probably. Will you just go in there and plug in your DEFCON defenders this week? In a week where everyone's taking punts, this might be a week where you do plug in your DEFCON guys. Because I actually thought I can see some teams, and I bet Harry, if you're watching, you're probably considering this, buying in Anderson this week, getting your 5 points with a possibility of 7. Why the hell not with your 4 free transfers?
Yeah,
Any thoughts?
I mean, I agree, but all I was just thinking there was, it was obviously the extent to which the punts are the defenders as well. Again, we're going to talk about a lot of good defenders to buy this week, I'm sure. Certainly at least a couple in my mind. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit like the next game. I don't know if you want to move on to the next game, because if you think about Forest, Bournemouth, if we're going across in the same way, because it's a bit like a Hill, isn't it? Someone like that. Again, it's even more so now. So that his value has gone up a lot to me. It's not in terms of, we have a guy who is absolutely nailed and is very good for DEFCON, and I would think probably better than Van Heck for DEFCON. So, for example, I'll be playing Hill over Van Heck, and obviously the fixture plays a part. And I don't think, I'll be quite surprised. I'll be really, really, really surprised actually if Bournemouth or Brighton keep a clean sheet. But yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'm very happy to play Hill because he's nailed on, and not many people are. So we're struggling for that. He's very good for DEFCON, and he's of course just a defender. And it's just, we'll talk about this a lot more as we go through, but it's been the meta of the season is just the DEFCON guys, defenders, and as in there are just fewer goals. So it is a bit different in Game Week 38. I do think it is different. I do think that will continue. The average number of goals is always higher for various reasons. But this season, people who picked up on that earlier have done really well. Have just been like, this is the season where there is just fewer goals. It's just a different type of game. It's set pieces. It's DEFCON. You're going to get more clean sheets. So yeah, someone like Hill, and a lot of people have probably got Senesi. Maybe 10 weeks ago, I might have looked at that and thought, I don't really want someone like Hill away at Forest last game of the season. It's not great. But now I feel really, really, really fine with it. So yeah, I mean, Van Heck, you're right, Rich. I was in my own world when you were talking exactly about him, so I don't know exactly what you said, but he's obviously on my bench, and I'm perfectly happy for him to kind of come in. I just think United really will score. Maybe there's a little bit of bias in there, but yeah, I mean, and just on that game, this next game in general, it's one of those difficult ones. I mean, Forest are an interesting team because, again, another type of team that we sort of identify and think about in the last game of the season in terms of whether they're on the beach or whether they're playing for something on motivation. There's also just some teams who are just in a really good place. They're just in a good moment. Everything's just working well, and that's always been a little thing. And there's a trajectory there. I'm thinking about someone like Newcastle as well. When we get to them, they're just in a good place at the moment because they've just ironed out a lot of the crap. I mean, obviously Forest have survived. They're in a really good place and trajectory with their new manager, who's done a really good job. They've obviously just got lots of very good players: Gibbs White, Anderson, etc., etc. It's probably Anderson's last game, and there's going to be a big celebration at Forest. So that's a difficult game to read because obviously Bournemouth do have lots to play for. They're playing very well. But I think that's really tight and really difficult to call. Forest away is not going to be easy at all at the moment. So other than the defenders, yeah, maybe I need to think about those midfielders and attackers a bit more. I mean,
yeah, and more generally, I'm sorry I've cut you off, Danny. I know the above average guys always talk about looking for these games where we've got 40% plus clean sheet probability. There's not a game here that's breaking 30 significantly. I mean, 31%. So, and it rings true what we know about Game Week 38 in the past. There's probably not going to be a lot of clean sheets.
Just again, it's probably too much of a meta point, but I just want to say it because it's on my mind. But I said this a long time ago this season, about 10 weeks ago I can't remember when we talked about the impact of DEFCON and things like that and what it means. And, of course, it's kind of so ridiculous us talking about this now in terms of like an Anderson or, a Szoboszlai or something like that, because the answer every week has been Anderson, for example. You said, you're just going to get him for 5 points. The simple fact is that is the answer. That is the answer every week. The only difference now is our psychology, because it's Game Week 38. We all want to finish on something big. We all want something to make up for the pain of the last few weeks. But the answer, of course, is Anderson, because it's always been the answer this season. And Szoboszlai is the answer. So the medium, the medium penises we talked about last week. And it makes it so painful because, just like I said then, because that's the answer, because of those guaranteed points, you're not chasing the same thing anymore. When you're behind, you're not chasing these static targets that don't get any points. They're going to get some points, even if it's just DEFCON for Anderson. I mean, he's doing a lot more than that at the moment. So these players and all of those teams. So this has been the season. The teams and the managers that are doing really well, or that are done very well for a long time, they just move inexorably away from you and go further and further ahead because they've already got all the right answers, and they are the right answers. It's just that we never want to go there. We never want to use one of our precious transfers to get an Anderson or a Szoboszlai. So yeah, I just want to. I know it's. I know that's kind of obvious, but it is so funny as now looking at not Forest and Bournemouth and kind of almost ruling out or laughing at the idea of Anderson or something, because the only reason it's not the answer, because it is the answer, is because it's Game Week 38. It's ridiculous, isn't it? So we're all just ignoring it like idiots. And all anyone sitting there watching this, or anyone who's anywhere who's in like the top 5K or the top 100 in the world, are going, those idiots. God, look at those idiots. I've got Anderson,
but we're hoping to catch that midfielder who picks up a goal. But if he does pick up a goal, he probably doesn't even win big against Anderson. You win marginally.
Exactly. I mean, it's not just, of course, it's not just the DEFCON. It's these players. I mean, and it's fine and it's great, and we've got to be a little bit careful because every season is very different. Every season changes a lot, but these guys, I mean, it's been such a big thing with bonus though as well, isn't it? And everything that they offer to the game. Like you check these guys every time. You know with Anderson. Like when I looked last week, you know he's going to be top bonus. I mean, he's going to be close to top bonus without any returns. And it piles on, doesn't it? And I'm trying to think of other examples just now because I know I've just said Soboslai and Anderson and. I mean, a little bit Saka last week when he got the bonus and the DEFCON, and he ends up with a 10-pointer from an assist. So it's these guys that actually we don't necessarily find maybe they're not typically that exciting. Maybe they're not typically players who can score or brace or hat trick, but it's the accumulation of points, it's avenues, like we've said so many times. So it's so easy for Anderson to get a 9 or 10 pointer from or more from an assist. So easy.
Well, that's right. If you were someone who was in the rich position of looking down from a lofty height, I've no idea who number 1 or 2 or 3 are in FPL, etc. But you were just defending a lead. There's no better player to bring in this week, is there? Just be like, you take your punt. That's fine. Yeah, I've got myself a little cheeky Anderson.
I'm absolutely fine. I'll take my guaranteed. I'll take my guaranteed 5 points. Thank you very much. Yeah, and as a floor.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll do this in the post-mortem, but I mean, I'm thinking about, I'm not a big close rank checker, as everyone here who knows, but I'm fairly certain that my most profitable period of the season when I piled onto these players, whether I meant to or not is another matter. Reluctantly. But they were there. They ticked along. They got, it was 5 points, 4 or 5 points every week, and then occasionally spamming a 12. And it's like, this guy's amazing. It's everything that I thought Rayan Cherki was gonna be.
This has been. Sorry, Rich. Just to say, I'm just thinking now because it's absolutely true. Because I mean, I certainly. Whilst things have gone wrong at the end of the season, it's kind of gone wrong for a lot of people who are on a similar strategy, which is actually really interesting when you look back. And again, it's probably for the post-mortem pod, but oh well. Because I remember just before Wildcard 32, for example, I was starting to accumulate a lot of these guys. Soboslai was in the team. He was by far my favourite person to own. He was getting me points every single week. It was just, in my mind, he was just an absolute no-brainer. It's absolute nailed on. Trying to think of 1 or 2 others, but there were lots of players like that who were just really solid getting the points. But of course, the interesting thing about the Wildcard 32 was, which in many ways it was the best strategy. We kind of saw that. But actually, for it to be the best strategy, you needed to come out of it with like 5 free transfers on the other side because it was the best strategy for a lot of the players who weren't those players. Whether it was with triple Brighton, it wasn't a Forest player because they didn't have a double. It wasn't the Liverpool guys because I don't think they didn't have a double either. It wasn't a Soboslai. It wasn't an Anderson. It wasn't. So we ended up with triple Brighton. We ended up with Chelsea. I'm just looking now. João Pedro, Parma. We ended up with Man City. So we actually, although it was very good in terms of the doubles and the structure and the free hits and so on, it was none of the medium-sized, penises. It was none of these guys. So we've all got a team empty of them now. We've all got none of them, and we all don't want to move on there because it's too late in the season. So we're all just going down.
I mean, this is very post-mortem, but I long for the days that I had a medium-sized penis. What a wonderful time. A time that, I think fondly of now. Anyway, don't clip that, by the way. It's a horrible time. But yeah, it's... Yeah, no, I think because as you say, last week was a great example of a week where you just, you look around your squad, you're looking at who it is that's going to help you out in a scrap. And you're like, where is Elliot? Where is my Elliot when I bloody need him? Someone just to come in, get his 5 points, maybe a bonus or 2. Where is he? He's not there anymore. So I'm still mourning it, to be honest with you. That's why I'm in the suit. The dark suit. But what can you do? I don't know where we are anymore. But
we will catch up and speed up. But we were on. I don't know what you guys are, but I've got Hill from that game. I'm playing him.
Oh yeah,
I'm comfortable on that. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone else, and I find that game quite hard to read. I think it's going to be like a, I don't know, 1-1, maybe 2-2, 2-1, 2-1. I don't know.
I should just say from that game, by the way, sorry to break your thoughts there, Jossy, but what I was going to say is that if for anyone keenly watching the highlights of that last Bournemouth game, I mean, Tavernier could have had a couple of assists there. It could have actually been a really decent return. So I took the road less travelled last week when I had to sell a midfielder in my head to bring in Dewsbury Hall, who played very well and got nothing. Story of the last month or so, and kept Cherky on the bench instead of Tavernier. And now I've got pretty lucky in some ways, because Tavernier could have easily walked away from that. I think Evan Ilson missed an absolute sitter. I think everyone remembers that one. And someone else missed a decent chance towards the end as well. He could have easily got 2 assists in that game. So I think if I had him, Jossy, which you do, I'd be quite keen to play him, to be honest with you. You know you're going to get the minutes. They're motivated. I know it's boring, but I mean, we miss boring, right? Then I say.
Yeah, no, he's very playable. And I've got Senesi and Hill, so could end up playing all 3 of them, to be honest. If it wasn't for the rotation, I could bench boost this week. I'm really happy with the overall squad, but it'll be about trying to cherry pick who's going to play, I think.
Yeah.
So where were we?
I should say, before we move on to the next game, you know, as I said, I would encourage people to make a list of 3 or 4 players in you know, maybe even each position. And Morgan Gibbs-White, I think, is still on my list, actually, to tell you the truth, because he's one of my only good memories of the latter part of this season. And you know, he did look good last week, and they're still into it. And you know, he's bullish and maybe even still trying to play for the World Cup squad. So I don't hate that one as well. Him and a couple of others are on my list for the midfielders. Should I replace Cherky or someone equally dreadful? Liverpool, I kind of feel like we've already talked about it a bit, but any kind of additional words on that one? I mean, I think there was a tiny bit of me that wondered whether, you know, because I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, sell Gyökeres," you know, João Pedro injured, etc. But maybe even Haaland. We'll come to whether Haaland is a, dare I say it, captaincy option, because it's quite an interesting conversation, you know, depending on what we hear in a week without any good captain options. Some would say. So yeah, that's an interesting thought in itself. But yeah, Thiago is another one where, you know, okay, you probably won't buy him this week, but I do envy people who do have him, because again, it's another sort of decision that you don't need to make, a 90-minute guy on penalties, and so on and so forth. So any more takeaways from that Liverpool Brentford game, or are you looking at that?
Dango is playable as well. You've still got
Dango,
him. A few people.
Yeah,
yes,
I agree.
yeah,
agree. I just think that I think that looks like possibly one of the games with. It looks like possibly one of the games with a lot of goals. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of it. You know, Liverpool are a bit. They're at home. They're going to be going for it. That, you know, I don't know to what extent they can. But Brentford are a very savvy team. They're going to be very happy to sort of be in the position they are. It'd be a bit of a celebration for Brentford players, I would imagine, just being so comfortable in the Premier League, being at Anfield, the atmosphere. You can see it being. You can see there being goals. And yeah, I do like Thiago, but he has gone off the boil a little bit recently. He hasn't looked quite as threatening. I don't think he's scored from open play for a while. I might be wrong.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I do quite like it. It's just, it's a bit difficult. There's no Brentford player that are back enough to make a transfer, you know, as much as someone like you just said from the last game, like a Gibbs-White, which I actually really like. So it's really, for me, it's probably just Szoboszlai, although even that's a bit weird because, you know,
yeah, I know
he was out with Salah. He's obviously part of the, you know, team Salah, but he is being played every week. I mean, Slot can't drop everyone, so it's a bit weird. But yeah, he's just, again, it's just his season. It's Szoboszlai's season. He's been Liverpool's best player by far. It's just as simple as that. So, and he's very, very dangerous from free kicks, and he's a great player. I mean, yes, I think Crypto Block Dan was in here, wasn't he? Said he might captain Szoboszlai. I've got no problem with that at all, because
no, I wouldn't mind that. I think he's definitely again, if we're creating this mental list of each position, you know, Szoboszlai is definitely up there for the midfielders. I mean, again, it will probably come down to something like, okay, if you hear Saka is a problem, maybe you have that route to Palmer, possibly. But other than that, Szoboszlai you can get to from anyone, can't you? I think that's the appealing thing there. from most positions. And I've been banging on about him for bloody weeks, not brought him in. So, it feels like one of those ones, and we'll come to the other positions in a minute. But strange enough, my own team might come into the conversation for other positions, but probably not midfield, to be honest. Brighton, Man United, we had a question about Cunha earlier, so maybe we should cover that off as well, and whether Manchester United are worth backing in this fixture. I do think it's a fixture that, maybe defence aside, you just play everyone you have, pretty much. It feels like a game where, if you have them, you can be fairly relied that you're going to get the minutes, and there's enough there to think that you'll be on safe territory. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the most relevant thing for that game is captaincy, first of all.
Yes.
Again, when we just everything we've said today, we talked about kind of minutes, motivation, guaranteed this, that, blah, blah, blah. Fernandes, just like he was last week, objectively, it's just kind of the best pick. So I just kind of Richie's gone on a toilet break. It just reminded me. Last week was one of the few times that I remembered to check my fan team. I've not remembered it for like 6 weeks. And we always say especially when Alan's in there that we always say when Alan's in there, especially that it's like your Gumar team, because you kind of treat it differently, much more objective. And it's funny because I just kind of, obviously the one week that it was the week that Van Dijk scored twice. So obviously I remembered to log in for the first time in 6 weeks. So obviously what I did was bench Van Dijk in every team because he was playing against Aston Villa in that team. But I remember that on autopilot, I was just like, it might have been the week after, I can't remember. I did it those 2 weeks. But just on autopilot, I was just like, yeah, Bruno Fernandes obviously captain in every team. Like, doesn't matter, even if I had Gyökeres or Saka or anything like that, because you're just completely objective about that. You're just like, well, yeah, it's obviously
just
Bruno
reliable.
Fernandes. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in fantasy, you get an extra point if they actually play 90. But I don't think I was thinking about that until afterwards. So it's just funny. So it's a little bit like that this week, where, okay, it is a tough game, but I mean, Bruno Fernandes is just, I mean, watching us against Forest, I mean, obviously it was quite a close game, but I think XG wise, we had like 4.95 XG or something. So Forest like 1 or 2. So United are another team that are just in a really good place at the moment. Like, the players are so happy. They're all going out together. They love the manager. Cunha is just so happy. He's a really interesting one for next season. So yeah, I mean, on that topic of Cunha, of course, he's a good pick. I mean, the only thing with Cunha, as I've said before, the problem with Cunha and your Boomos, and I mean, Boomo owners, geez, our friend Benji's of the part, he's my friend, and he's had Boomer for ages, and he kept him this week, and we were talking about it, and I was watching it, thinking of him, kind of, I mean, he should have scored a hat-trick in the first half. He actually should have scored a hat-trick. They were all sitters. It was just purely a confidence thing. How on earth he didn't, I do not know. So what I'm saying there is, it can be so frustrating with those sort of players who don't really have the avenues so much. So obviously, yes, Cunha's a good pick. Is he as good as Anderson? No, he isn't, unfortunately, because that's the game now. He doesn't have the avenues, and doesn't have the DEFCON. But he's really on form. He's really, really playing well. He's really happy, and he's just such a magical player. He just knows how to. He will just carry on getting better and better. I truly think, if he stays fit for the next year or two. I've said before, the reason why I used to call him a god is that he sees ones and zeros to me. He's one of those people who has the potential, like Neo, to bend things at his will. It's different. It's a different world to him. He's one of these guys that just pure, so class. He's looking up all the time. He can dictate things, and you can see that he's just getting more and more confident and better footballer. So I just think he'll keep getting better and better. Yeah, I just want to say really quickly as well, before you come to you guys or anything else about United. So Bruno is probably favourite captain for me. Probably just about at the moment, maybe. But a lot of people have been saying about it, like things like it playing down a little bit is assists. I've heard a little bit about it. Maybe I've not heard that, but because a lot of them are like not open play assists and all this, and it's like, okay,
yep,
fair enough. But also, first of all, when you talk about Thierry Henry, that was prime Arsenal. When you talk about Kevin De Bruyne, that was prime Pep Guardiola with Aguero in front of you. So let's just remember that Bruno Fernandes has done this for a pretty rubbish United team, and he spent half of the season as a defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
Half of the season as a defensive midfielder. So amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
what I've seen of him, it's not that he's not creating from open play. He's putting in terrifying balls, or like you say. I mean, how many of those Bumo sitters was he a hand in? All of them.
Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like we've had strikers that have really struggled all season. That he's put it on a plate too. So I mean, when you look at the numbers of chances created, I don't think it's even it's like miles ahead of everyone in Europe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what Jossy. What do you reckon about that game? Are you captaining Bruno or?
I'm flitting between him and Haaland at the moment, but with a half an idea that maybe I take a flyer on something a little bit lower. EO. At the moment, he's my vice captain, and I don't know why. Because to be honest, he's a lot more reliable, and we know he's going to play. He's going to play 90, and he's going to be hungry for those assists. And when he gets any sort of returns, he's likely to get bonus. So he should be higher on me pecking order. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong as well, Rich. Before I ask you, like, if you're captaining him, like, don't get me wrong, this is a tough game, isn't it? I mean, it could be a game where we do lose 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. It's definitely going to be a very tough game. I just kind of see it as whilst it'll be a tough game, I think we will be able to break them down. But yeah, what were you, Rich?
I think, I mean, I know everyone will be very aware of this in game week 38, but I think a lot of it depends on your defensiveness versus that you need to kind of make a bit of a leap. Now, Jossy, from what I gather, your situation is one where, you can't, unless you take a proper Hail Mary, you can't get to probably something that you want. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those situations where you can't really, there's no point, in a way, there's no point treading water. You could argue. It depends on your mini league situation and that sort of thing. Whereas Danny, from what I read into your situations, you could argue that you could be a bit more defensive. But I know we don't necessarily fully kind of embrace these things, but I'm just wondering how much that comes into it, because you mentioned earlier, Danny, about defenders being the quite interesting part. There's a tiny bit of me that thinks, okay, if we move in that kind of direction, I can see, and yes, and it's Wednesday, but I might captain a Mavropanos, for example. It wouldn't be completely crazy, because it's like, well, I'm in a situation where I can't really do anything unless I take a fairly roguish move on the captaincy. So I don't know. I need to think about it a lot more and what kind of tier I'm in. But on a purely standard play, I want to really hear what I can from what Man City's lineup is going to look like. But if not, Bruno is the obvious kind of default 90-minute. He's excellent. High chances of one return, something like that. So I think you'd have to back that one, really. Is that the way you're thinking, Dan? I'm just curious, because your situation might be slightly different to, say, Jossy.
I honestly don't think I have a situation. I've not looked at my rank now. I mean, it's just a few weeks ago I was about 40k, 50k, and then now I know that I've just had red arrows since, and it's probably plummeted quite a lot. And as I say, but if you're not 10k, I don't really care. So I don't think I have a situation.
Yeah,
I'm not.
You've not got a target now to aim at.
I'm not bothered about mini leagues. I'm not bothered about targets. So I try to just stay objective to the week now, especially. I did go for low EO captaincy last week with a couple of weeks left, So I've not really thought about captaincy a whole lot, but I will certainly be objective about him, pick who I think is the best pick. But I do think that it's a really interesting week, because I do think that, for example, you just mentioned Mavropanos, like players like that are good picks. Like, they're very, very good picks. They're guaranteed to play. They can get DEFCON. They might get clean sheets, and they've got a lot to play for and motivation. So I'm absolutely fine with that as an objectively good pick. And to be honest, even captaincy, because again, like you said, it's not very easy to choose a captain, really, is it? So, but yeah, I don't think I have a situation per se. I'm past that point. I'm not really interested in that sort of thing.
I suppose we should probably head off this Burnley issue at the pass. I don't know what to ask here. I mean, we did have a question earlier, so perhaps I'll just rely on the good humour of our audience. Who was it? Oh, I suppose Mikey mentioned it earlier on, really, with whether we should be targeting that fixture, given that either side will be playing someone bad. and road captaincy has. I mean, actually, someone messaged me earlier this week, by the way, captaincy wise, they've got triple captain left this week, and I'm like, Christ, what do you do there? What do you do with a triple captain this week?
That is fun. So that is where you can go. Maybe
Yeah, I have no idea.
yeah, triple captain Mavropanos, or just pick someone. There's so many choices that you really can have a lot of fun this week. I think with
you could
if you want to. I mean, obviously the answer could just be Haaland or Bruno, but that is fun.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, in terms of this game, just we won't stay long on it. But I just like to say that I just do really quite like, for example, a couple of Burnley picks. I really like them because they've got two, for example, proper talismanic players in Fleming and Anthony, who are both nailed, and they both score goals. And they're at home for a bit of a celebration. They've known they're relegated for ages. So last final goodbye to they've actually been pretty decent the last few weeks. Burnley, they've got Wolves at home, which is a very, very, very good fixture. At home, bye to the Premier League, thanks to the fans. Couple of nailed talismans, Fleming, Anthony. Honestly, I think they're underrated picks because, again, people don't want to go there because they think, well, it's Burnley and that's fine. But there's an awful lot in 90 minutes talisman. There's a huge amount in that. And they're at home and they've got a great fixture. So I really, really don't mind either of those, especially someone like Anthony, who's, he's had a really good season and just like he's capable of braces, easily capable of braces and even a hat-trick in this sort of game against Wolves at home. So yeah, I don't know. Jossy, you anything for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get the attraction. I can't. I just feel like it's the kind of transfer that I'm just going to be kicking myself if it doesn't go well. I can't get overly excited. But I've just had a quick look. I mean, they're ticking along. They're delivering recently, Anthony and Fleming. And I suppose they do probably have the potential against the Wolves to maybe brace. I'm not feeling it. I think I'm going to be swerving that fixture personally.
If I can just chime in a bit here, if it comes down to a kind of situation, I mean, again, Jossy's only got one free transfer. Some people have 3 or 4. I think the problem I have with this, with backing this, I agree with you, Danny, in principle, but it's just, if it comes down to it, we like that free hit week where we didn't really know exactly who to back because the games were so close. With both teams being shit, I don't really know. I mean, Wolves could win their 2-1 and you wouldn't be surprised, right? Burnley could win. It could be a 0-0 draw. I'm not really sure how to read the game because I don't really know or watch either team greatly. So it is very much a kind of lap of the gods kind of situation. But as you say, the difference being you can't pick Wolves assets because none of them are any good at all, even in FPL. Whereas in Burnley, at least you've got 2. I was going to say, Anthony, he is the penalty taker, right?
I don't
probably, although I can't guarantee the answer to that, to be honest. Okay. I haven't thought about Anthony enough. But yeah, it's a good point. If he's penalty taker as well, I just think it's a game that's likely got goals in it as well. You think about these game 38 fixtures. If that game's going to be 3-2, 3-3, which looks on paper to have the potential. I mean, even the odds there are pretty good for just goals in general for given the 2 crap teams. I think so. You're not just backing 90 minutes and kind of talisman. You're also backing probably a lot of goals in the game because why wouldn't there be? I mean, other than not being able to finish, it's not like either team is going to be going out trying to defend, is it? So it is interesting. Yeah. What do you think about Sunderland Chelsea, Rich?
Well, this is, actually the best person to go to. This is a man who just got a goal and assist from a forgotten man because Jossy owns Enzo and João Pedro. I mean, we'll come to him in a second. João Pedro is probably the most interesting player in terms of the press updates to follow because we had an update today from some of you might have seen it where it was broadly quite unhelpful, wasn't it? It was one of those, well, let's see how it is for Sunday. We're not too worried about it. So it really could mean anything. And I know a few people have been like, well, he missed out on the Brazil squad. And I think they think that he's out until the summer, really. And he's just not, he doesn't care anymore and that sort of thing. But obviously Chelsea have got something to play for. So I really hope he is back because that would be a real kick in the balls, that one. I mean, selling a rotation player is one thing, isn't it? But selling a player who's being really good and he's more or less definitely going to get like 80 minutes or something would be a real shame to let him go. So I quite like him for that fixture. So I really do hope he's back. But yeah, what do you think, Jossy? I mean, presumably you're happy playing both of them if they were fit and backing that fixture.
I'd like to, yeah. And it's a little bit differential now. I think probably a few people have come off the Chelsea players. Enzo did really well for me. That I think I was saying to you earlier that I was kicking myself when I moved off Matoma to Enzo because Matoma then miraculously played both games in the double and got a goal. But as it happens, if I'd have kept him, I'd be 10 points down now, thanks to the Enzo haul. So, yeah, and I think you've often said Enzo's a good pick, Danny. He's got roots, hasn't he? And it feels like he's a bit more involved now under the new manager. Feels like he's taken up a more attacking involved role. So, yeah, happy to have both. Really hope Pedro's fit. Palmer's the punty one, isn't he? But he just isn't justifying his price. I don't think I'd be going there even if I had the money. Sunderland got some assets. Robbie's been doing really well lately. I think he's had a great season. It's a differential. I'm not sure Chelsea will keep a clean sheet.
Sunderland have got something to play for now, haven't they? I believe. Is that right?
They still qualify.
Because that's the thing. I mean, the manager described it as their cup final. So, you know, he's really sort of going on as, you know, he's really sort of talking as if this is going to be a big one. So you've got to think this is a tough fixture, obviously. Sunderland have been really good at home. They're describing it as their cup final. And it's the last home game. And it's just, again, it's really going for it, combined with a bit of celebration, and it's going to be really intense. I do think, though, again, of all the teams that are in, I think personally, rightly or wrongly, that are in quite a good place, you know, relatively speaking, compared to the general season, I think Chelsea are one of them. 8th could get Conference League. Yes, that's pretty big.
Sunderland are 10th.
Right. So I do think Chelsea are quite interesting because I think they're just a team that they are capable of kind of getting through and taking apart anyone. I think they've been better, you know, in the last few games. They were good before the cup final. They were good in the cup final. They were pretty good. You know, I know they had problems, but they were pretty good. It wasn't easy for City. And then beating Spurs last night, it's not easy. I know it's a bit of a grudge match for them or whatever, and they're kind of a big thing for fans, but it's not easy. Being 2-0 up against the Spurs that are absolutely fighting for their lives. It's really not easy. And I think they're in a better place. And obviously the players are all really happy that Alonso's come in. So they're all trying to impress him a little bit. They're all excited. I just think that I like Palmer. For this.
Yeah, I know you do.
I just think he's starting to look better. I know he's been poor this season. I know it's a bit of a punt. It is a bit of a punt because he's not really had the output. But I mean, he's been very close. He missed a penalty. He probably should have had another penalty in another game after that.
The offside goal.
The offside goal, exactly. Yeah. And he's come very close to some long attempts. I mean, he looks much fitter and sharper. I thought, although he maybe wasn't great attacking wise in the FA Cup final, defensively, I thought he was brilliant. I mean, he virtually single-handedly stopped Doku in that game, which is really difficult to do. So he was so disciplined in that game. But he just looks pretty sharp to me at the moment. And obviously, he'd be desperate to go with England. He probably won't. I really think he should, by the way, just because I think some people are just difference makers. International football sometimes can be really, you know, tough and, you know, just like kind of turgid and difficult to make something happen. And it's, you know, it's all these sort of mishmash of players coming together. And sometimes you need difference makers. You need someone like a Trent, who I don't know if he's going to go. Maybe he isn't, but he should, because he's a difference maker off the bench. And I think Palmer's a difference maker. Palmer can carve anybody open. So a bit like Rashford as well. I think in international football, you need these sort of players. I mean, obviously, I think that if Palmer was fully fit and being proper Cole Palmer that he can be, he walks into the first team for me. Walks into it. But obviously that might not happen. But the team is announced on Friday, though, isn't it? I think actually saying that. So there's not even going to be. It's going to be announced by then. So scrap that. But anyway, I just I do like Palmer. I think he's in a pretty good place. So if I was in position where everything was really solid around me, I'd be very open to like a Saka to Palmer move. And just, again, you've got a guy who's on penalties and he's nailed. And I think he's looking pretty sharp. And again, Palmer is just someone who's, just the last point on that, again, for me, because people will be listening going, why is he talking about Palmer? And yeah, fair enough. But Palmer is a player who, again, when he is playing well, if he fires, he's just a completely different caliber of fantasy football player to virtually anyone else you can think about, because he's just a guy who just scores, assists. He's just an absolute monster when he's on it. So I know he's not been doing that recently, but I just get a little bit of a trajectory feeling and watching his fitness and just thinking I'd have a bit of that. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, there's only 3 players on my midfield shortlist, and I think we've named them all now. So it's obviously Palmer only in that situation where Saka is confirmed bench, and then it's Szoboszlai and Morgan Gibbs-White, which I know is particular to me because it's one of those few the few soldiers that have stood beside me in the trenches. But no, he's a good pick anyway. Yeah.
Well, let's pause for a second. Pause for a second, because have you got 1 transfer or 2?
Yeah, this is the problem. Yeah.
So, yeah, but you say the 3 players, but what about Mavro and Bowen? I mean, we'll come to them in a second, but what about the West Ham boys?
Yeah, well, it's this is what I mean. It's completely dependent, isn't it? Because of this, I know that everyone has said it this week, but we're all going to be hanging about, aren't we? Waiting and seeing what we hear on Sunday afternoon. And obviously, if in a situation where Gabriel is out of squad, or João Pedro is confirmed injured on Friday morning when there's a press conference, etc., that does change things, doesn't it? Whereas if it's waiting for a leak on a Sunday afternoon and you hear that Saka and Cherki are both benched, then that's another decision. So I've got about just under 2 million in the bank, so I've got to make my mind up as to which midfielder I would go for in that scenario. But I broadly prefer the midfielder picks in a 1 free transfer situation to the forwards. I just don't like them. I think someone like a Jokeris, even though I know he's probably very dodgy for this week, if you told me he was getting, I don't know, I was very, very fortunate, isn't it, if he got 65 minutes, but I'd probably take it and start him right now for that. That unfortunately, that's the reality of it. It's just still a penalty taker and all the rest of it. So yeah, no, I do like it. I think those are the guys.
If you brought Palmer in, would you captain him?
In my what's his ownership? Yeah, maybe actually. Yeah, probably. Because I mean, who gives a shit right now? I mean, I'm not going to do anything unless I take a slight gamble.
Yeah, I'm tempted. I'm tempted to captain him. It's a possibility. Yeah. I need to look at the team more, but it's definitely a possibility. Okay. By the way, just to say, like, if João Pedro, by the way, is not injured, like if he's like okay, if he could go to the World Cup, I think it's. I mean, I'm not in the know in terms of if there's some reason that I don't know about. But I think him not being picked for the Brazil squad if he's fit is insane to me. I think he's an absolutely tremendous player, João Pedro. Ridiculous player. And he's really on it at the moment, and he's earned it. He's been playing really well on his own. When Chelsea have been bad, he's still been playing really well. He looks really sharp and fit, and he can carry a line on his own. He can do it on his own up front. It's just insane to me how there isn't space for João Pedro. I do not know.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. 3 quick games to whip through, and then we'll just check back on those questions before we look at our teams. So, I mean, I guess we can kind of combine the relegation candidates together. So, do you know what? Can we let's leave those till last because they're quite an exciting thing. Any notes on Fulham, Newcastle before we get to them? Because I think, broadly speaking, I can't imagine anyone bringing anyone in unless they were sort of Asula curious or something. I'm not quite sure. Not that that's a stupid idea at all. But...
If you have Wilson, I think you're in trouble with that. With the start. Yeah. It looks like he's probably not going to start now.
I mean, I'd be surprised. He probably won't. But I don't know what Fulham have got to play for. But it'd be a bit strange given the season he's out if he's fully fit. That last home game. But again, you don't want to go there with that if you've got him. But yeah, I mean, just quickly, I mean, Newcastle again, they're just in a really good place. So, and Fulham don't have Anderson at centre back. I don't think he's still suspended, isn't he? I presume. I think that feels like it was only a week or 2 ago that he got that red card. which is a pretty big loss. Newcastle are just in a good place. So, and when they're like this, they can just take people apart. So, you know, Gimenez, unfortunately, he moved a bit deeper, didn't he, in the last game?
Yeah,
And when he was, when he was playing in the 10 role, I said last week that I thought, I've been in chat to like Baker and Zoff because they were bringing him in, but I genuinely thought he was in that position, one of, if not the best pick in the game, because he's just completely on it at the moment. He's got all the avenues. He's incredibly creative. He's got penalties. DEFCON. I just think Bruno Guimaraes is incredible. So people who brought him in and then he moves back into deeper positions, you know, really unlucky there. Although he's still got DEFCON, so he's still got some avenues. But yeah, unfortunately, that means that, you know, you're less likely to bring him in for this game. And then Osula does stand out. So you get the number 9 for Newcastle when they're playing that formation, 4-2-3-1. I think Baker said the same thing. You've got to like it because they're just in a good place. They're attacking really well, and obviously Osula's just scored a few goals, so you know the confidence is there. There was a bit of confidence there, and he's playing against, like I say, you know, 2 centre backs that haven't been their first choice centre backs. So absolutely no problem with that. Again, when you compare Osula to others that we'll talk about when we talk about West Ham and Spurs and other strikers that you might bring in, if you are talking about forwards, there's just calibre there with Newcastle as a team. There's trajectory for where they are, but there's just, you can be, you know, whether you talk about Spurs and what they've got to play for, or West Ham and what they've got to play for, or anyone else, where you can be much more confident, I would say, about just Newcastle because of the calibre, the quality of the team, and the setup and the place that they're at. So I really don't mind Osula at all.
No, I think I'm the only one here who has actually owned him as well.
Have you?
Yeah.
What was he like, 4.2 or something? When
yeah, he was 4.2 or 3 at Sheffield United, and he was absolute dynamite for those 1-pointers occasionally off the bench.
Oh, my dad loved him. My dad's a Sheffield United fan, and he always said that Osula was. Every time he scores, he goes, "Osula, sold you, absolute nightmare." That guy.
Yeah, I bet he does actually. Yeah, well, he always put himself about. There's no doubt about it. He always makes himself a nuisance. It was just, you know, getting some finishes to add into it, and that's starting to happen now. But let's talk about the last 2, because this is probably where a lot of people will be looking, just because it's such obvious motivation, and of course those projections are maybe a bit generously high, I would say. But that's we can make our own minds up on that. West Ham with a projected 1.76 against Leeds, Tottenham with 1.72 against Everton. It's very tricky, this one, because I'll be honest with you. You know, when we were on here 3 or 4 weeks back, I was suddenly like, yeah, I think we're going to do it. We're just going to edge it through and that sort of thing. The last 2 weeks, it's been like, oh God, you know, this is over. It's done, and we look fairly shit at the moment. So it's not a great time to be bad, is it? Unfortunately, in that last game, got the tactics wrong. I think he switched the positions of the centre backs round so that there, you know, the right-sided guy was on the left, and you know, really odd decisions that a bit of overthink had kicked in or something that he'd done before, maybe 2 months earlier in the season, that had worked out once in a game. And Todibo had come back into the team and thought, well, yeah, okay, he's back now, so we can do that again. And some really odd decisions, and then they got sort of hit twice in the first 20 minutes, and that was game over basically. So it's not looking great. So that was the only game for a while where I'd say West Ham's defence has looked really fragile, which is an odd time for it to happen. But going into that game anyway, I still think Mavropanos is kind of quite comfortably the best pick in the team, because if it goes right, you could be, you know, easily looking at a 15-pointer. Bowen, such a logical pick, isn't it? On paper, of course, you know, you've got all these routes and penalties and corners, and of course it's likely to be a fairly tight game, so maybe 1 goal is enough for the bonus and all of that kind of stuff. But he's not looked good for a while, if I'm honest. You know, I love him, obviously. He does look pretty knackered. I don't know about that one. That's why I'm hoping that I don't need to back a striker punt this week. I don't really want to have to pick a striker. So I don't know what you guys think, but that's the West Ham side of it. Obviously, we can come to Tottenham in a minute, but I mean, do you have any thoughts going into that? I don't think it's going to be a tight game. I don't think there's going to be many goals in it either. So it's a kind of 1-0, 1-1 type game either way. And my guess is that we'll probably hear that we're in the shit about halfway through, and it'll peter out anyway. So I don't really know what to say about the West Ham game in that regard.
I mean, watching them in the last game, and again, this is me asking you the question because I'm don't know the answer. I haven't seen enough of them, but I was watching it thinking, wow, like I had to check Tati's minutes. I was like, why is Tati not playing more? Because
I don't know. Yeah.
I just thought he's like West Ham's Richarlison, if you like. He was just like, he was really hungry, really lively, and obviously he had scored that incredible goal, had some other chances. I had to check his minutes straight away because I thought, I mean, if say you told me, which is obviously we don't know and we can't, but if you told me that Tati was guaranteed 90 minutes in this game, which he's not, but if he was, I'm not sure there'd be many better forwards in the game to pick.
No,
I mean, he really looked dangerous and really up for it, really passionate, and just like he knows how to score.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, obviously that goal was incredible, but he's not a terrific finisher by any means. But
he has missed a lot of chances.
He won't. Yeah, he won't get 90, and well, he's very seldom completed 90.
Yeah,
he's only helped a little bit by the fact that Pedro is not really a footballer. I'm not really sure what he is. I don't think anyone. I mean, nice chap, I'm sure, but he's the kind of guy who should be sort of handing out the boots.
Is it like that guy on BBC News who like just he came in to apply for a job and then they started asking him questions about like
a bit like Guy, who came in to do the Apple Music interview. He's it's a really peculiar situation, genuinely, and I don't even know that the fans are being that tongue in cheek with this. They think that Pedro is a bit of a like. Has someone as an agent done something to fiddle the books here? Like he doesn't really like walk, talk, and play like a footballer. It's difficult because he puts a lot of effort in. It's one of those. But anyway, that's probably not for this discussion because no one's going to pick him, obviously, unless you're desperate and you're in draft. But yeah, I think it's Mavropanos if you're going to go for that at all. I'm really gutted about the DCL outcome for us, Danny. I can't believe how badly that's gone. I thought that was such a blameless move to go from DCL to Gyökeres. How that's blown up on us is unbelievable. And you, oh Christ. So terrible luck, really. But I don't think there's a lot of goals in it. But I think Tati isn't a bad pick, but it's just the minutes. I think Mavropanos is not the only pick, but he's the best pick in that game, and Bowen is fine. It's logical, there's routes to points, but brace yourself because you're going to watch him and think, hopefully he's got the motivation there as captain because the form isn't particularly there.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, when I was planning my run out, I was pretty set on if West Ham had something to fight for, Bowen would be coming in, but I have gone cold on it. He's not really been. He doesn't feel like he's been at it, so that's a bit disappointing. And Somerville's gone quiet now as well. Am I right, Rich?
He came back and looked. He's looked a little bit brighter, but they're not. They haven't been in a position where he's dominant or anything like that. So no, unfortunately not. Yeah. How about you, Danny? Does that game interest you at all, or is it just Mav?
Yeah, it does. I think you do have to talk about the two together, especially for anyone who may be making more than one transfer, or even if you're just making one. I think the way I'm sort of starting to sort of broadly trying to see those two games, because I absolutely see them together because they're both in a very similar position. They both got a decent fixture at home, both got everything to play for. It's going to be so nervy, by the way. I mean, wow, because I know there's all these outcomes and the odds are hugely stacked in Tottenham, but bottom line is it's a bit of a shootout. West Ham win and Spurs lose. That's it. It's I know Spurs are sort of obviously favourites and they need less, but you can easily see that happening, by the way, because I do really think, I know Everton have shipped a lot of goals recently. I still think they're super, super dangerous team, and they're super sort of just a horrible team to play against because it never really seems to sort of dip too much. This is sort of the way they function and stuff. I'd definitely be a bit worried for Spurs. I mean, we saw it, obviously Everton have basically just decided the title. I mean, they were 3-1 up against Man City with 10 minutes to go. City, had to win the league. I mean, that's the sort of team Everton are. They can do funny things. They're a team that sort of doesn't really change in terms of the confidence and the manager. Everything's very stable. So the way I sort of view those two games broadly, just purely my kind of view is, I think West Ham is the better team for defenders and defence. I think they're going to really try and shut up shop. Leeds have not been fantastic away from home, I don't think. It's going to be, that's what we've seen from West Ham, playing to the strengths. When they play well, they have got a good couple of centre-backs, Souček and all this sort of stuff, and absolute battlers. And then it's going to be trying to nick a goal type of thing. And I can absolutely see that being a 1-0 to West Ham. Whereas Spurs, I favour, for example, Richarlison more than I do the defenders. So I know that Pedro Porro is a great pick objectively. That's fine. And anyone can go there, no problem, because he's got loads of avenues and he's a fantastic pick and they could easily clean. I just think, personally, I'll be really quite shocked if Everton don't score, because I just think they're that sort of team and they're going to enjoy this party pooper role of just like not giving a shit. And obviously Spurs are just still not very good. The manager's done a great job. He's made them much better, but they just don't have very good players. So it's not like it's like a really difficult game for Everton, and it will be a nervy stadium and stuff like that. That's my feeling, is that I think West Ham, very good chance of a clean sheet, very good chance for defenders. And I think Everton, that's how I'm viewing it, that they might score. So, but also Everton have shipped 2 or more goals in the last 6 games. So,
yeah.
And they don't have anything to play for. And I think Spurs are going to really need their goal scorers for those reasons. And I think Richarlison is the big game relegation battler. He's the big game man. And he does it, and never mind against his old club. Richarlison does it. And so I do like Richarlison quite a lot. And the Everton defence, rather than a sort of Bowen and Porro combo, personally, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. No, I think, I'm fine with that. Obviously, for obvious reasons, even I can't bring myself at this point even to do it. So hopefully not. But I think that's the right way round. Very happy to have big Kiernan. Imagine if Kiernan Dewsbury Hall does the business. That'll be a nice end to the season. You never know. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. I know. I'm guessing neither of you have been in this position because you support teams that have won things. But I made peace with it. A couple of weeks ago when I thought, oh, okay, that's done now. So I didn't expect it to go to the last game in the end. So I'm kind of bemused that this is even still a thing. But obviously chances there are that the Spurs edge it. But I think Mav is probably the only player from those 2 games that I'll be looking at, unless the only player that's out of it is a striker. I'll go back to the questions very briefly, and then we'll go on to our teams, because I think we've probably talked enough for people's taste this evening. Road captaincy for the Chasers is maybe a question that I don't know, did we cover that? I mean, let's just pick a name out each for that one, and whoever goes last can have the awkward job of trying to find an interesting name. So, Jossy, I'll be kind and give you the first dab at captaincy for a Chaser.
Okay, you don't want to hear this, but Richarlison. It is crossing my mind.
Jesus, unbelievable.
I won't get invited back, will I?
No, you won't. Danny.
Well, should I be horrible and steal your shout, or should I try and think of something myself?
Up to you.
No, I'll be horrible, because I feel you've maybe thought about it a little bit more, because we think we're both on similar feelings actually. But it's got to be Palmer for me as a rogue shout.
Yep. Obviously, I'm not going to do this almost definitely, but I'm going to say Mav. Why not? It's so and we're talking if you are just in a ridiculous position where you really can't see any way out. But I can see returns at either end of the pitch if you get very lucky. And Defcon seems fairly secure.
Reminds me of a couple of years ago when we Kane on the final day, brought Kane in, captained in. Nice brace.
Danny was a Son guy, I think, that day. So let's not talk about it. Do you know, I'm pretty sure I was at a rural restaurant kind of pub in Norfolk, and where you have just one of those meals that's you only realise afterwards how big a meal you've eaten, and you feel like to the point where you're like, I might actually have to be ill here. It was one of those situations. So I remember that happening at a time where. Yeah, that was going. Anyway, we'll move on. But that was at a time where I remember Kane and Son having that last day shenanigans. Triple captain left. Have we said that? I think we have really. If you're being picky, the priority sells in a world. We kind of covered would you play a Hill or a Van Heck over a bench Saka? Did we answer that? Maybe we did.
Yeah,
I mean broadly.
Yeah,
Hill, I think,
is a confirmation that Saka was benched. I think you play Hill.
Yeah.
Van Heck
the answer to the question was, for me, was prioritize keeping the guys who were nailed, to be honest, and then go from there.
There we
whoever
go.
they are.
Good luck. Good luck, Keith Starmer. Sounds like you might need it right now. Assuming no leaks, we've kind of covered that. And then finally, those suckers left with one free transfer, is a hit worth it? Yeah, I suppose we haven't really covered that before our teams, whether we would be tempted into a shenanigan. Thank you for the question, Slippery Nip. Back again. Hits. I haven't taken one all season.
Let me add a bit of spice to this, because I think the answer is no. But what if we get sufficient leaks that we know João Pedro's dead, Saka's not starting, Haaland's benched, Gyökeres is benched. I've got 4 or 5 players not playing.
True,
Then do we take a hit? I think I would in that instance. If I'm adding a new player,
yeah, I think that's fine. If you literally know loads of people, if you're really in trouble and loads of people aren't starting and you're looking at a lot of 1-point cameos, then fine. There are some players that you can reasonably expect to get more than 3 or 4 points.
I think that's the only instinct.
Especially because we've named a couple of players that you might want to then add the captaincy to the risk element of what you're doing as well. So if you're getting Palmer in captaining, Saka's benched, that type of thing. I think, as you say, Jossy, 3 players is probably the threshold at which I would start to consider hit. Like if I heard I got 2 benched, I'd probably deal with it.
Yeah.
3 or 4, you're starting to move to a territory where you're like, you might start looking at that. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, if you know 3 are benched, you might not know about another 2 surprise benchings.
Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I mean, the short answer is obviously no, don't take any hits. But we're just saying if there were loads of people out, but the season's been painful enough. It's nearly over. Don't leave yourself for the summer of 4 fewer points than you needed to take just because you're not going to make that up with a hit on the last game of the season. Just let it go. Just let it go. Let it float into the distance. What will be, and just wait for game week 1.
Yeah, and in the meantime, watch our post-mortem and then prepare for signing up for whatever we do next year. David Gandy there, or is it Jossy from maybe 5 years ago?
I'm trying to carry on his pose, but no.
On the screen for the ladies or indeed everyone. Why not? And Jossy, I'll let you read your team out so you can tell us what you're going to do, because I'm sure you have a watertight plan.
Oh, absolutely. I'm already very certain on what I'm doing. No, well, at the moment, I've got Verbruggen in nets at home to United. I've got O'Reilly, Gabriel, Senesi at the back, Cherky, Saka, which Bruno and Enzo. And then up front, I've got Haaland, Gyökeres and Pedro. The bench is decent as well. I've got Tavernier there. I've got Hill. And I've also got Van Heck, who I'm quite happy to have a 3rd bench. I don't want to be doubling up on the Brighton defence this week. I think I am on the right end of it to choose Verbruggen over Darlow. As you said, Leeds are not great away, and West Ham have got everything to fight for. As you alluded to, I look at the first 11 that I've chosen here, and probably 7 of them are at risk of not starting. Not to say that they all won't start, and I'm probably relatively comfortable with Saka. So it's going to be about waiting for news. quite happy with the 11. If Cherky was benched, for example, happy to just play Tavernier. If João Pedro is not fit to play, I happily play Hill. Yeah, and so I suppose it will just come down to who's confirmed out, and then do I need a midfield punt or a striker? Welcome any thoughts.
Yeah, I've just before you say anything, Richard, you've just reminded me actually. I'm going to be pissed off yet again because I really hate leaks, and this is one of those really annoying weeks where people who have crappy players like Ryan Cherky get to actually find out if he's going to play or not, and they don't deserve it. You don't deserve to find out. You deserve to be punished. You deserve to have to sell him.
You told me to keep him last week.
Yeah, I did, but now you need to sell him because now he's crap. But you're going to find out, and you don't. It's outrageous. It's absolutely scandalous, and I'm not having it.
Because if he starts, he's a good pick.
If he starts, he's a great pick. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, you don't deserve it. So
thanks.
Should be banned.
That'd be a nice way to end the season. Actually, a nice Ryan Cherky start and a couple of returns. Yeah, maybe we should have that. That sounds reasonable. If I just wheel out a couple of scenarios to you, Jossy, let's just imagine, right? You're in the bog or wherever it is, or pub, or you're pretending to listen to Mrs. Jossy when she's talking to you about, replacing the curtains. And okay, so news flash, 2:16 p.m. UK time. Ryan Cherky is announced benched. And Saka benched at the same time. Those are the two leaks that you get. What are you going to do?
I'm going to play Tavernier over one of them, and I'm probably going to sell another one. I think if Saka is benched, maybe I'm kind of hoping Gyökeres is going to get his start. Maybe I'm thinking that they're playing a mix of a second string. I'm not going to be able to make more than one transfer. So I don't even know who my midfield targets are.
This is what I mean. Do I have a list?
Sorry?
Gonna have that list ready, Jossy.
Yeah, I will have that list ready by the weekend. I've kind of been really laid back about it because I feel like I can't make any decisions at this early stage. But
your team is interesting for one thing. Before I move on, I mean, your team is interesting for one thing. I think is that in comparison to Danny and I situation, you are very unlikely to make a defender transfer. I think.
Yeah.
So no big Mav 15-pointer for you.
No, because Hill and Van Heck are very good picks. I mean, that bench is probably going to hurt me again, to be honest. Although I'm almost there, and I'll be playing one of them at least.
There we go. Okay, well, yeah, plenty of time to think until Sunday when you won't have any time to think. The Haaland captaincy, by the way, that's not going to happen, though.
Again, I'll be waiting for news. If there's certainty that he's starting, I feel like if I brought in Richarlison, I think I might captain him just for one last hurrah. But you mentioned before about my own particular targets. I don't think I can achieve a ranked target that I'm happy with. I do have a couple of mini leagues that I'm looking in an okay position to win, but they're tight. So I don't want to take significant risks, to be honest. I probably would like to just be robust, sensible, try and get some. But I've got a good feeling about Richarlison, I think. I don't know. Let's see.
There we go. I will never speak to you again. Mrs. Mikey, by the way, has messaged. I told Mrs. Mikey to turn away from that handsome hunk. I'm assuming she's talking about Danny, but it could be me. So I don't know. We'll see. If it is Mrs. Mikey, good evening to you, Mrs. Mikey. I hope you're enjoying the visual pleasure Over to me then. My team. Verbruggen, Hill, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Bruno Fernandes, who's got the captaincy at the moment, Saka, Hinshelwood, Dewsbury Hall, João Pedro, Haaland and Gyökeres, Darlow, Cherky, Bijol and Van Heck on the bench. I think what's interesting, actually, now that I think about it, it really is probably, if one hears that O'Reilly or Gabriel is out, that Mavropanos would come in. I'm just thinking about that now because, I mean, as much as Bijol seemed like an obvious full guy with £2 million in the bank, I'm fairly sure he's fine and he plays. So he's going to pick up 4 points as and when I need someone to come in. So that's quite an interesting thing. I haven't really given it much thought yet. But other than that, that will be the defence. The most likely players to go out it's just going to be one of those Cherky, Saka, Gyökeres, Pedro, whoever we hear. I like I said, I don't really like any strikers, so I hope that I don't have to pick from one of them, but we shall see. But yeah, similar to you, Jossy, I need to perfect that list of who I go for, but the key people on my mind are Mavropanos and Szoboszlai and Palmer and people like that. I don't really want a striker, but maybe I'll be forced to think about it a bit more. Any thoughts? I suppose knowing who to start this week is at this point is kind of impossible, isn't it? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, we're waiting for news, aren't we? But you've got sufficient options to come in the bench if you need.
It's a deep squad of fairly useless players, yeah. So at least they're all there. I mean, at least I can rely on Jack and Kin and people like that to do their bits. But
until we get,
I wish I'd kept those Bournemouth players. Over to you, Danny.
Yeah, I was just thinking then, I mean, before about sort of opinions on your team, I suppose it'd be similar to my team, but I absolutely hate that FPL of kind of waiting for the team and having these lists and having these scenarios. I'm not playing this game for scenarios. I'm not playing it for kind of this kind of short-term planning nonsense and like paths. I get that. Obviously, I am. I play it for long-term optimization, long-term like what I like, and it should be about the intangible, shouldn't it? It should be about like who you just think are good picks. That's what FPL is. It's like, who do I think is a good pick with everything in my minutes, player, games, and all that. And anyway, I know that's really obvious, but it just shows you that how it's a good way of showing you how shit it would be and how much I would hate it. I've always said it. If the deadline was at kickoff, for example, especially on a Saturday when it's like 3 o'clock, I'm not waiting all week with scenarios with potential players that I might pick and not pick, and then not having to judge minutes as much because I know who's going to play anyway. And then having to be there on Saturday, and we all have to be there. We all have to be there on deadline because that's when all the transfers are.
Yeah,
stops all price changes. I mean, it's just it's a terrible, terrible idea to even consider having the deadline.
I completely agree.
At first kickoff. Just thought I'd get that in there because this has just reminded me how much I dislike that, and I can't be bothered with all these different scenarios depending on what we get told, which we shouldn't get told because it's supposed. That's why it's an hour and a half. The deadline's an hour and a half before because we're not supposed to get told. Not after these stupid leaks. So
you're angry, aren't you, Danny?
Yeah, I am actually. Yeah, because I hadn't really thought about this. I'm like, I don't want to go into the weekend doing that. I'd rather just choose who I want to choose, and rather we all did. But anyway, there we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, similar team. I've got Verbruggen, Hill, O'Reilly, Gabriel. I mean, by the way, I haven't organised this yet. Actually, really, I've got Saka, Fernandes, Semenyo, Dewsbury Hall, Haaland, Gyökeres, João Pedro, and as I say, I've not really organised it yet. So Hinshelwood first bench, Van Heck, and then Struijk, unfortunately, who now seems to be injured. So I've got 2 transfers rather than 1, which is maybe it's handy, maybe it's a curse. Who knows? So that's the way it's been going. So I hadn't really thought about it in terms of lists yet. I hadn't really got to the point where I wanted to think about it at all, actually. But I'm getting there. It just is what it is, and try and have fun on the last game. Obviously, I look at that team and I say to myself straight away, okay, Gyökeres is very much a problem for me. I don't want him in the team, but maybe we find out. So I'm looking at him going, right, okay, he's a problem. And maybe Saka is a problem. I think he's, in terms of before we actually know leaks, he's less of a problem than Gyökeres for the reasons I've said.
Yeah.
João Pedro, I've no idea what's happened. I mean, I thought he came off with cramp on Saturday, but obviously maybe it wasn't cramp. Maybe it was just maybe it was an injury. Maybe it was a bad cramp. Maybe it was cramp times, devastation of not being called up to the World Cup, and maybe he's taken that really badly. I have no idea. But yeah, you'd hope he's okay because he's a pretty good pick this week. So hopefully we get news there, because otherwise it gets messy. And if you've got Gyökeres problem and a João Pedro problem, I have just got players in my head that I like Richarlison, like Mavropanos, like Palmer, like similar to Rich, like Gibbs White. Just players that I like, and I'd want to organise it such that, I mean, the nice thing again about Hinchelwood, for example, that's kind of why I organised it there, was kind of to say to myself, okay, like maybe I do sell Semenyo, maybe I want to get rid, maybe I've got 2 or 3 players that are a problem. Well, I've got a guy who should be pretty nailed there, who I'm either just going to start anyway, or is just, a good first sub, probably end up starting him with all the problems. Just good player, good fixture. So probably play him. So, yeah, I don't know which of those players I'm gonna move around yet. So let's say João Pedro is announced that he's fully fit and fully fine. Probably makes things a little bit more interesting, because then I can shift over then to say, do I want to get Palmer, for example, for Saka and replace Gyökeres, or maybe I don't, because the issue with that is I don't have the transfer for a defender, for someone that I'd quite like. I'm struggling actually, because I really do like Palmer. I do like Gibbs White and Anderson and Forrest in general. It kind of feels like, especially if you've got 2 transfers or whatever, I do kind of want a piece of Spurs or West Ham. Both home games, but both loads to play for. So I need to think about that more, because it's where that I think actually, if it was like a Richarlison versus a Mavro or something, I probably would be more likely to go for Mavro. Just because, again, it's the season, innit? It's the avenues.
Yeah. And Big Mav,
And Big Mav.
Yeah, I mean, Richarlison's not big rich, is he?
No, exactly. No, he's definitely not big rich, is he? He'll never be big rich.
Yeah,
exactly.
We were early adopters of the love for the Greek god. There we are. Actually, it makes me think back, and this was sad, wasn't it? But George Bulldog, the Greek international. I remember us breaking that news way back, and of course,
that was like when the pod first started, wasn't it? Yeah.
Anyway,
so,
but lots.
Sorry, I was just going to say, hopefully that's not too unhelpful or anything. I don't know, but just players that I like. So I guess we have to really. We're waiting to hear the news, aren't we? So
yeah, it is the way. But we do thank everyone for sort of sticking with us and like celebrating the 1K subs and hopefully liking that. Yes, we have, quite rightly, as IM1974 says. We're it has hit that point of the evening where we don't really want to wear a tie anymore. I have been very tempted to loosen this throughout the course of the evening, so nice to kind of finish up. But I'm going to finish up with this lovely comment from Kev, who's a very well placed manager in our mini league, I think. So rarely get to tune in live, but I'm a listener every single week. The handsomest chaps in the FPL YouTube land. Thanking you for the great listens this season. So there we go. Thank you very much. I won't pretend to be able to pronounce some Gaelic. But yeah, thank you very much, Kev. That's lovely. And that's why we do it. That's for sure. Thank you anyway, Jossy, for joining us for one last time this season. Like I say, we've got one more pod post Game Week 38, and then we'll enjoy our summer refresh. And we've got lots of exciting plans for next year. So all very much. So thank you very much for joining us, Jossy.
Pleasure, guys. Yeah, it was always good to join.
Good. I hope it works out. That one free transfer is well deployed on the sweaty Sunday afternoon as well. Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone, and we'll catch you again soon.
Nice one.
Cool. Thanks, guys.